My name is Rachel Cox, and I would like to present on language brokering among Latino children and adolescents, the effects of language brokering, and some strategies to assist families who participate in language brokering. I chose to do this project on language brokering because of my experiences with Latino immigrant families. I work in an optometry office and have had a lot of contact with families that have bilingual children and monolingual parents. Though we have a translator present, parents will still often use their children to translate. And because I've been in the room with them and I've seen that I have firsthand seen the benefits and the consequences of language brokering. And since then, I have become very interested in the family dynamics and parenting strategies of those that participate in language brokering, as well as the effects and the impacts that it has on society. In the United States, nearly 76% of Latinos ages 5 and older speak mostly Spanish at home. As you can see, first-generation Latino immigrants are more likely to speak Spanish at home, and they typically know very little English. Also, 40% of Latino families are those first-generation immigrants. Because of the culture of the United States, many professional and legal communications happen in English. Therefore, the Latino families that have experience with English may already have an advantage over those that do not have as much of an experience with the English language. Language brokering is defined as the act of a bilingual child translating and interpreting for their monolingual parent. Though this can happen at any age, I'd like to focus on elementary age children and young adolescents and the effects and impacts it has on their development. It's also important to note that language brokering is most common with first-generation immigrant families, but could also include refugee families or even second-generation families. It just kind of depends. There are many factors that play into a family's use of language brokering. A key element to language brokering is the fact that many Latino children are often given more opportunities to learn English than their parents. When children and adolescents are immersed in school, they will often learn the English language a lot more quickly than their parents will. Likewise, monolingual Latino adults often select jobs that require very little English communication, which may contribute to not learning enough about the English language to communicate efficiently day to day. An influence of familismo may also contribute to a family's use of having children become interpreters. Children that act as a language broker for their family report feeling as though it is their duty to help their parents in these situations. Other causes of language brokering include smaller, simpler things such as parents lacking the time, the resources, or availability to pursue an education in the English language. Therefore, language brokering may be seen as the most convenient option for these parents, as their kids are often around and available to do so. There are a few benefits for adults of children who act as a language broker. Adults may view it as a convenience to have a live-in interpreter, kind of like we just talked about, or someone who will often willingly help translate for them. This relieves some of the stress that parents may have about not understanding the English speakers around them. Like adults, there are a few benefits for children who act as translator for their other family members. Children may experience an increase in various experiences and situations that will help shape their cultural identity. By spending time in settings of both the majority culture and time with their families, they are better able to understand and appreciate the strengths of both cultures. Likewise, children who participate in language brokering may have a greater sense of purpose as they are given more important responsibilities. This can contribute to a greater sense of worth in younger children. Children are also more likely to grow in terms of English comprehension as they are exposed to English at much higher rates than their parents. The children that participate in language brokering are more common to grow up in a biculturated type setting than those who do not, because again, they have influences from both the majority culture and their family life. Though there are some benefits to language brokering, there are many negative effects for both children and adults. Adults that participate in language brokering are less likely to take the initiative to learn English, as there really is only a small need because they have a translator ready. This could pose some challenges later on in a parent's life, particularly when the child is older or is just for some reason unavailable to translate for them. There is also a risk of depression or other mental illnesses, as parents may feel shame or frustration when turning to their children for help time and time again. Parents will also experience an increase in dependency on their children, which may reframe the entire family structure, obviously causing some stress within the family. It is important to note here that many children report that they really do not have any specific problems with acting as a translator for one or both of their parents. It truly is a cultural thing that they view it as a good thing. However, language brokering is still viewed as an overall negative strategy of communication, as there are many negative effects that will appear later in life. Children that have to translate for their parents in sensitive situations show an increased risk of later substance abuse, as well as an overall negative development. Often, by the time that they are adolescents, these children will experience feelings of frustration over the demands of acting as a translator for their families. Between parent and child, conflicts may occur due to language brokering. There is often a concern of conflicting roles and boundaries, as parents will often become reliant on their children for help with daily tasks, such as going to the grocery store or the bank, things like that. In some ways, parents may feel as if their child runs the show and they can't really get along without having a translator present. There are problems that may arise because of this. There are many stories out there about children that will abuse their knowledge of both the English language and the customs of the majority culture, as well as even laws and standards like that. They'll use that almost to blackmail their parents, because their parents really don't have as good of an understanding as they do. These conflicts can be very serious and can hopefully be avoided. When looking at societal trends, there are many instances in which families have difficulties communicating in business and educational situations. It becomes even more concerning when children are having to translate in situations that are a lot more extreme, such as legal offices or medical clinics. Fortunately, in many states, it is actually illegal to have a child as a translator in these types of situations, such as at a hospital, a lawyer's office, things like that. And the facility actually must provide a translator. This is a good thing. This will hopefully prevent some of these problems and these misunderstandings from occurring, and kind of give these kids a little bit of a break with these more demanding and a little bit more stressful situations. Lastly, it can be assumed that children will feel the stress of having adult responsibilities even from a very young age, and that may be something that they will carry with them. With all these children that are acting as language brokers for their families, it'll obviously have an impact on the later society as these children grow up and become adults. So of course, it's important to look at the things that can be done to prevent this. When attempting to prevent the negative effects of language brokering from occurring, a few things need to be kept in mind. Time and time again, research shows that the best outcomes for Latino families is when both parent and child take the necessary steps to learn English efficiently. This is best accomplished with a bilingual approach to learning English, as it enables both parent and child to have the same understandings of both languages. This is arguably the most culturally appropriate way to teach language, kind of with that bilingual perspective, as it does not infringe upon the culture and the language of diverse populations, but instead it rather teaches them the skills that they need to live productively and efficiently where English is a common language, and to hopefully still have those skills in their home language of English or wherever they are from. Hopefully they'll still have those skills there and those customs. Locally, there are a few programs that may assist a family with the resources that they may need to discontinue language brokering. Just here in Davis County, Davis School District has an adult education program. This program, though it was originally set up to just help adults get their GED and high school equivalent, and now educates adults of all ages, genders, and ethnicities on a variety of different subjects. There are classes specifically for adult Spanish speakers that would like to learn how to speak in English. And many of these classes are parents who would like to discontinue language brokering and to become a little more independent from their children. Likewise, dual immersion programs within elementary schools may allow children to benefit from having both English and Spanish teachers. But as well as helping the children with these bilingual skills, it will often provide parents with some assistance as well. For example, Spanish-speaking parents may have access to Spanish-speaking teachers in their child's school. If there are miscommunications or problem at school of any kind, and perhaps maybe the Spanish-speaking parent is unable to understand or to comprehend kind of what is going on, hopefully the Spanish-speaking teachers could offer some relief and step in and act as translators, again, to kind of take the load off some of these children that are language brokers in their family. So looking at these challenges of intervention and kind of ways to help prevent language brokering, there's a couple of different things to keep in mind. The first one is the need to be culturally sensitive. This means refraining from infringing on the rights and beliefs of family members. So education can be a big key here in educating parents on this presentation as far as the negative effects of having children act as language brokers, but at the same time, hearing their thoughts, their opinions, what both parent and child think. As again, it is very much a cultural-based practice of Familismo, of course, helping out the family. So it's important to look at their beliefs and their culture and kind of take that into account. Also, it's important to know that families may truly lack the time or the ability to participate in these programs, so alternatives may need to be looked at. This could be a variety of different things. The first thing that comes to mind is online language learning programs. They have different programs online or things they can do at home that hopefully some of these parents can either meet up with family life educators or just in their own home work on these different skills. Also, lastly, many parents just do not have the awareness of these programs. So it may be a benefit to reach out to these parents. They may not see language brokering as that big of a deal, especially if it's low demand and the children aren't needed as often or in serious situations. So it could be of some benefit to reach out to some of these parents and to kind of explain just why it is important for them to take the time to become independent from their children. Just in conclusion, there are both benefits and negative outcomes for children and parents who participate in language brokering, as we mentioned. So of course, the best alternative to language brokering is to have both children and parents exposed and enrolled in bilingual programs where they can adopt the skills necessary to communicate efficiently in both English and Spanish. It is also very important to address these communication problems early, as we talked about many times, even as young as first graders are acting as language brokers in their family. My experience at my clinic, I have had as young as 5 years old translating. So it's important to reach out to these families very early, just to ensure that each family member will be given the same opportunities for success. Thank you for your attention.